No, that's kind of why Roger has to say.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. Do we need more chairs? Have chairs over here. Okay, thank you for joining us tonight. Senator Summers is stuck in traffic. She had to head up to Massachusetts today, and hoping that she'll get here soon to join us as well. So tonight we are together to talk about solutions for beach ponds. We had a really good, I think on my end anyway, we had a very good summer with patrol, with the presence on the pond, at least from NCON and DEP. What my goal would be, and I think Mason Trumbull from DEP, his goal as well, is to come up with a permanent solution so that we're not here every year or every couple of years trying to be back in the same place again. So tonight's meeting, we have kind of two parts. So the first part's going to be with DEP and the state to talk about ideas for solutions on their end, on where they see we can work together for a permanent resolution. So I'll introduce Mason Trumbull first. He's the Deputy Commissioner with DEP. He's fairly new, about a year. Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
But I first met him probably his first couple of days on the job at Beach Pond, and he's been fabulous and involved and has a lot of energy and a lot of ideas as well. So there's Mason. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, hello everyone. Thank you all. You have a beautiful little town here in Voluntown. I grew up in the town of Orland, Maine, which has 700 people. This actually feels pretty familiar. I know what these small town meetings can be like. I know that I'm in the hot seat right now. So thank you for allowing us to come down and just chat. I'd like to say a special thanks to Senator Summers and First Selectman Hansen. You have a couple of very powerful advocates, and they have, I've gotten many phone calls from them about asking and sometimes demanding that we focus more on Beach Pond. And I know that's been a pain point for many folks here with different folks, I'm sure, have different opinions in the room. But I know that that's been an issue. And so I wanted to come down here and they asked me to come down. I said, sure, I'd love to come down. At least give you an honest assessment of what we at the state can do at Beach Pond. Also let you know what we can't do. And I know, there's been a couple of different options around management for the pond. I'll talk about those later. Again, our position at DEEP is we like to present options and then, hear from you. And, at the end of the day, we'll tell you what we'll support and what we won't. And we'll get to that later. But for starters, I wanted to just talk a little bit about, and then I'll say one more thing too. We're going to follow up. I know there's been some concerns around aquatic invasive species, hydrilla, water chestnut, all the different types of species that can really cause a bunch of different issues in a pond like Beach Pond. We have a program. We have one of our staff members coming. He's not here yet, but we have a grant program available. So we wanted to at least talk to you guys about that. I know there's been some concerns about that as well. So we want to hit those four things and jump right in. So first and foremost, I wanted to start by saying, and I'm going to ask Captain Mazzotti to come out here in just a second, but talk to you a little bit about our capacity. So we have our Environmental Conservation Police. Captain Mazzotti here, he's recently promoted to captain, was it how many months ago? August, cool. So brand new role for him. We depend on our officers in the green uniforms every single day. we have a very small team across the state. So our jurisdiction as NCON, we actually have more jurisdiction than state police. So we actually, in addition to all the laws that a normal state trooper would be responsible to enforce, we also have jurisdiction over all the wildlife and fisheries laws, as well as all the recreational laws. So boating, fishing, hunting, all of our parks use. So that's campgrounds. Think about the many different people that are at campgrounds. You know, to give you an example of, we get 10 million people visit our park system every year. We depend on our NCON officers to keep those people safe and to make sure that the laws are followed in the park. So all that being said, our NCON officers were incredibly busy. They are always incredibly busy, but they were especially busy after COVID. So our calls for service, which is like a call for service in NCON terms, is anytime an officer either responds or anytime someone calls in for help. So both of those things would be what we quantify in our record system as a call for service. Our calls for service almost tripled during the pandemic. Number of officers that we had did not triple. So you can imagine that was not this past summer, but 2 summers ago. And that's the summer where there was a lot of issues on Beach Pond, right? Those issues weren't just on Beach Pond. From my perspective, every time there is a summer weekend and it's over 75 degrees and the sun is shining, my phone is ringing all weekend long. All across the state, issues very similar to what you saw here, what you saw that first summer of the pandemic in Beach Pond. This past summer, we kind of got lucky. I'm turning into a little bit of a crusty person. I love a rainy weekend in the summer. It means my phone won't ring. But we saw that a lot last summer. Every single holiday weekend, almost, I think maybe we got a good Labor Day, but it rained. And so that made our jobs a little bit easier because obviously those are the days where we see the most issues, the most people outdoors. But at the end of the day, we want people to go outside. We want people to have fun. We want people to go boating, fishing, kayaking, all the things, right? Swimming. And so, our capacity at Beach Pond, our jurisdiction extends statewide. Now, Captain Mazza's going to come up here in a second and just share a little bit more about this district. But at a statewide level, because we have the jurisdiction that we have, if something happens, whether it's an emergency, a boating accident, or it could be something, like an assault in a state park, or it could be a lost, child, lost hiker, or something like that. We're responsible for the entire state. So basically, the way we manage that, like any other law enforcement agency manages that, we respond to the calls of the highest and most grave concern, right? So if there's someone who, like in state police terms, if someone's maybe writing a speeding ticket versus a murder, right? You know what one they're going to respond to there. Well, for us, thankfully, it's like, we have voting laws, we have parks laws, we have accidents, search and rescue. So we respond to the highest. Every single time, I expect our team to respond to what is the most prominent emergency. And on a busy weekend, we have a lot of those. Of course, busy weekends are when you want us to be on Beach Pond, right? So the issue is we may have good intentions. We may start the day at Beach Pond, but if we get another emergency within our district, within our area, I'm expecting these guys to respond every single time to that emergency, which means they leave Beach Pond and they go somewhere else, right? And so we've done more because of your leaders. We've put more efforts. In the statewide system, we have, Pete will talk a little bit about, we have over 100 state parks, over 100 boat launches, a very small team. And Captain Mazza is going to tell you exactly how small this team is in just a little bit. But we've given more attention to Beach Pond than we have many other places that people go start. And that's a direct result of the advocacy from your first selectman and your senator. So I'm going to have Captain Azada. I want to really just kind of be honest and open with you about what we have the capacity to do at Beach Pond and what we don't have the capacity to do. And then that'll kind of hopefully help guide the rest of the conversation around that way you guys can make a decision on enforcement options, whether you want to institute no wake zones or whether you want to hire a lake patrol officer, any of those things, or maybe some other solution. But that way you at least know what you're working with and what we can provide and what we can't. So Captain Mazzata, first of all, thank you for your service. We appreciate it. And if you could just share a little bit more about your district and your team, that would be great.
Thank you, Mazzata. I work with NCON. Just a little history of myself. I've been with the agency for 4 years now. It'll be 5 years coming up in January, February. Prior to that, I did 21 years in a city. So going from a city, I worked in the city of Middletown, where we'd have 16 to 17 officers per shift. We have 13 for the whole Eastern District. Eastern District goes from Massachusetts along the shoreline towns. We don't do the shoreline towns, but we do all the towns bordering the shoreline, all the way down to New York. So our district is huge. We have 13 officers, but we have 10 officers. We have 2 sergeants and myself as a captain. So when I'm used to working with a shift that has that on one shift, that's what we have for that many square miles of state forest, campgrounds, rivers, ponds, and lakes, and reservoirs that we do all the enforcement of. I pulled some numbers from Beach Pond. Beach Pond had more case numbers than the Connecticut River did. So we saturated Beach Pond this 1 year, and we've had more fatalities on Connecticut River. Between Connecticut River, and I'm just talking from the section of Middletown to Deep River, which is probably 7 miles of river. We had more fatalities and serious boating accidents there than we did on Beach Pond. We weren't able to respond there so much because we were spending so much time on Beach Pond. So by the numbers that were given, 47 case numbers of enforcement action. That's more than we had on one river, which is a major body of water for the state of Connecticut. With the 10 officers that we have that work in this one area, not only are we dealing with boating incidents, we're dealing with, like the Deputy Commissioner said, missing persons, wildlife complaints, nuisance animals, bear calls. It's becoming a problem here on the eastern part of the state. We have 10 different campsites that we're managing. Everyone camps on the weekends. They take weekends off, they go camping. We have 10 different campsites that we're managing. When you have 10 campsites managing, we're managing loud noise complaints, missing person, larceny complaints, motor vehicle accidents. We're doing that with 10 officers. That's all that we have for this whole area. And not all 10 officers are working every day because they're also given days off during the week. We have 6,000 miles of river that we're also responsible for. So I'm not trying to say that we're overworked, kind of, for 10 people to do that many miles. Imagine trying to run a Walmart with 6 people or 4 people. It's not happening. What we need to do is find other resources that we can do to help you guys, which would be by wake zone violations, a lake authority or pond authority like they do with Gardner Lake down in the Salem area. There's another lake, Besic Lake. Certain hours, there's a speed limit. Cuts right down. We as a group need to work on doing some of these things and reaching out to the other lakes and other ponds that have had issues that we're able to solve and come to some type of agreement together to get this problem down. It's not a lack of enforcement, it's people cooperating to work on this. With Beach Pond, with some of the things that we did have was a lot of personal watercraft operation after night or after sunset. Sunset's not when the sun goes down, it's the time that we use. And of those issues that we had, there were residents that live around the pond, the majority of it. So it's not outside people coming in using your pond, it's the people that live around the pond that are also becoming part of the problem. If we can police ourselves and work that as a neighborly thing and have the neighbors watch out for each other and work on that, it would eliminate some of that issue. Yeah, the issues that we do have, we haven't had a fatality boating accident this year. So a lot of the stuff is a nuisance, but we're not getting to the problems where there's fatalities and boating accidents and crashes. So
there's going to be.
I'm sorry?
I said, but there's going to be.
It's going to be an issue.
This is what we're trying to avoid.
I understand that.
That's actually, you're just there with
Connecticut jet skiers, that's not even close to accurate.
What,
They're all Rhode Island people doing it, the jet skiers, all of them. There might be one or two in Connecticut that don't even count. It's all Rhode Island,
Rhode Island?
all of them. All the jet skiers are from Rhode Island that are causing the problems where you get the calls. Every single one of them.
Beach Pond is also, and particularly, it's like,
Yeah. That too.
Beach Pond also, we can enforce whatever occurs here in Connecticut, on Connecticut waters, but whatever happens over that imaginary line, we can't enforce.
We're having tears tonight, right?
I'm sorry?
We're having the tears tonight, right?
No, I couldn't get anything out.
Because that's 99% of the problem with Beach Pond is Rhode Island fault water.
I know, I don't have.
So I don't know what we're even doing
90%
here.
of this useless.
But what jurisdiction can you make tonight to allow you to enforce the law over the imaginary line in Rhode Island?
We
Since
can't-
3/4 of the pond is Connecticut, within the confines of Connecticut, you guys just push people over and make them jet ski in front of you and then don't do anything. So how can you legally do something crossing over the imaginary line that no one knows where it is and then actually take action?
We can't, we don't have
So
jurisdiction.
this is what we have to do
Yeah.
tonight.
Right, and
Sorry
this
for-
is-
We've heard all your resource issues. No
Yep.
way. We're all very intelligent here. We need a solution tonight of what you can do to enforce the problems we're having over in Rhode Island. Those people even know where the line is, and basically you and I were on the water talking to your colleague over the summer saying, why aren't you doing anything? Well, because I think they're over the line. I said, but they're speeding and they're creating chaos.
It takes it
Why
to-
can't you do anything?
It takes it a step further, though. That's why Senator
What-
Summers is here, and I think Ryan's here somewhere, right?
Yeah.
You guys have to help with the law.
All right,
making.
you know,
That's
I think it would be helpful if we,
Yeah.
maybe if we call on individuals, one at a time rather than just speaking. And it's a complicated issue. Right now, both Tracy and I have explored with the governor's office, trying to get a memorandum of agreement or understanding between the state of Rhode Island and the state of Connecticut. That has to happen at the governor level. And it can't just be those. It also is now
There's
Massachusetts
four,
and
there's an agreement between the 4 states. Connecticut, this is how we'll have to move mountains to do this.
Right.
There's a statute in Connecticut that was passed by 4 states, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New York. And it's a statute that agrees on dual enforcement of wildlife laws. And it was brought to my attention from Rhode Island, actually, that a way to get a change is to have this amended to include voting laws as well. The problem is, it's 4 states. And
I will
think-
say it can be done because
Yeah.
I've been able to get New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and now Massachusetts and New York are joining in on a fisheries bill that I had, but it takes a long time. And to be quite honest with you, we do not have cooperation with Rhode Island, and we cannot control Rhode Island. I wish we could, but we can't. But there are some things that you can do that you may not want to hear and you may not want to embrace, but there are things that can be done to help with enforcement. Again, it would be on the Connecticut side.
For now.
For now.
And hopefully, we'll be able to push
It's just gonna
something
take,
through to get the agreements on the states, but it's not. I brought it up to like CCM and they kind of laughed at me because they're like, well, this is something that you're asking 4 states to do for one town that no one even knows where it is. So
but I'm
that's
not giving up on that because
I'm not giving up on
I
that either.
asked 5
so-
states to do something for one small fishing fleet
Yeah.
in Stonington, Connecticut, and we got it. It was painful, but we got it.
And I have a lot of relatives in Rhode Island, so I think I can recruit them all for the Rhode Island side.
But in the meantime, we were able to, one of the things that I found out was that because this is an interstate body of water, we were able to get the Coast Guard out there. When I called District 2 office, they thought I was out of my mind, and then they read the regs and like, oh my gosh, we do have jurisdiction on this. So they came a couple times, but we can't have them here every weekend. That's just not possible. The one thing that you can do, I think there's somebody here from the Patchogue Lake Association, right? So there are opportunities. I know that it has been presented to you and it has been rejected in the past, but just to keep an open mind on something that could be done. If you form a lake association, it gives you the ability to get grant money in to help serve a lake association for which you can then hire enforcement on your lake. But without that avenue, you are not really
Hard to
eligible.
get
It's
the
much more
money.
difficult to get it. And it also can provide you with an opportunity, if you work together, this is just a suggestion, with other lake associations, to be able to have funding through this new program that we've just started through the DEP. It's about a year old, for invasive species, et cetera. It just gives you an opportunity as a way to fund enforcement, which would be a supplement to what we can do with the econ police. I will tell you that I know that Mason has asked me for it, and I have written to the governor's office. I sent out appropriations to try to increase the amount of econ police that we have in the state of Connecticut. But not only is it a funding issue, but there is a, I'll say, a distaste for certain enforcement in the body of the legislature. And it's very difficult to hire law enforcement. Econ police is just not easy. We had, this year Mason was able to push it, because I know I'm one of those people that calls him on the weekends, to hire more seasonal people. We had an availability to have funding for more seasonal folks, but we couldn't find them to work. That's the other issue that we are dealing with. So there are some opportunities to do things differently that can help the enforcement, but it is unrealistic for us to be able to say that we can enforce the Rhode Island side, because we just can't. We have to get Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, and I think the other one on board, or we got to get it at the governor's office. And I have asked directly for him to pick up the phone and talk to, at that time it was Gina Romaldi, to figure out how they can make it work. And it's not a priority, and they're just not going to do it. So we have to think about doing things another way. And I don't want you to think that this agreement between all these states can't be done. It can, and we will continue to work on it. It's just slow because it is not the priority for these other states. And imagine getting something through Connecticut, we got to get it through all those other legislators and those other legislatures to be able to pass it. So that's where we are. We wanted to come to you tonight to try to let you know, number one, we're hearing your concerns. We are concerned also. I don't know how many times I've said to Mason, somebody's going to end up getting killed. There's been parties in Patchogue Forest that you have had to deal with me on that are on Facebook with fires and it's constant. So I would love if we had time for Mason to talk a little bit about forming a lake association. And the gentleman who's here from the Patchogue Lake Association to just tell you a little bit about it, so you don't have maybe a perception of what it is versus what the reality is. But Candlewood Lake, one of the largest bodies of water we have for a lake in the state of Connecticut, has a lake association, and they are able to have grant money come through that lake association for enforcement, for invasive species, and they just get priority versus trying to do something on a state-owned pond or lake. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. And then I thought Tracy, maybe Mason could say things, and then she could call on people individually so we're not talking to each other.
Cool. Yeah, I'll make this quick. Do you want your questions, Barry?
Raise hands and then.
Sure. Can you say a little bit about the lake association, or do you want to ask a question?
Well, and just a quick question is, how many people live on these other lakes that have associations versus Beach Pond? Because we have issues on Beach Pond now where we have 10 people involved in an issue, and we can't get them to agree. I can't see 300 people on the lake of Green for enforcement issues.
It's seven towns.
7 times.
But I'm just saying that people that are on the pond would be the association, so I'm just limited.
No, the
to
association wouldn't be, it wouldn't be people on the pond, it would be a community effort, and it would be including It can have people that live on the pond, but it would also be people that enjoy the pond for outdoor recreation and want to preserve it. So it's not
just
we're not talking
homeowners,
about
no.
just homeowners. We're talking about a network.
So it's a
of-
bigger number of people. I'm just saying, how to get, we'll never get everybody in this room to agree
No,
on
we're
something.
talking about a
Imagine
network.
15 times the
We're
size.
talking about a network of people that don't have to live in Voluntown, but people that want to preserve, that want to keep the pond.
Well, no, I understand what the goal and
Yeah.
objective is. I'm just saying, get
Yeah.
people to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Gardner Lake has it.
What's that?
Gardner Lake has one down in Salem.
They have the same.
And they have-
issues.
They have issues. Billings Pond's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just asking if the size
So
of
it does have
people that would be involved.
Yeah.
That's what it's.
Yes.
Yeah, it
But
would be-
it's people that are interested in using the lake, whether it's for paddlecraft, for jet skis,
Oh, no, I
or
understand.
for. And the big thing is the speed. He said that they're speeding on the pond, put a speed limit on it. We can go out there, we can enforce the speed limit. But if we're not looking to work it together and getting a speed limit put on the pond, we're just out there giving tickets out, and
and
you're
that's
still gonna
where-
have the same problem of people speeding. Then that's high
understand
speed
the
causes
enforcement.
accidents cause death.
That's where the no wait zone that we tried to propose back in, I think it was back in January, because that will give, easier enforcement on a section of the pond for the no wait zone. It's easier to notice the speed on there than to be on the rest of the pond, so.
And I will say the other lakes have no wait zones in certain areas.
Oh, look good. Speed limit, gonna do. And then get DEP, sees them speeding, and they run over to the imaginary lake, Rhode Island side.
We can still enforce it. If it happens in Connecticut, we can enforce it across the pond. Just like when you have someone in Connecticut drive across the highway, just because they're DWI in Massachusetts now or Rhode Island, doesn't mean it didn't happen in Connecticut. We can
Well,
enforce
that
it.
happened to me personally.
We can go across and we can enforce that still.
My son, almost got ran over by a jet skier from Rhode Island, 10 feet off of my dock, which is 34 feet, supposed to be 75 feet away. Now, it was from Rhode Island, so I called Rhode Island because this person happened to be from Rhode Island. Rhode Island told me it's a Connecticut problem.
The incident
So I
happened in
called
Connecticut.
and he came to the house, and they said, well, there's nothing we can do because he's now on the Rhode Island side.
We
So I
can-
called back Rhode Island, says, well, the person is at your launch with a ski from Rhode Island, which was unregistered, obviously uninsured, and he just sat on the side. I actually got in my boat and chased this guy down to the other side of the pond, came back, knew exactly what this guy was. So he shows up at my house. They say they're gonna call Rhode Island. They didn't call Rhode Island. The guy jumps on his ski, comes back over to the Connecticut side, changes his life jacket and his shirt, and goes back and walks away free. What good is it gonna do if Rhode Island and you guys can't get along?
As I said before you came in, we can only do what's within our jurisdiction. We don't control Rhode Island, and we don't control Rhode Island's funding or their DEM officers. I wish we did, but we don't. If something happens on the Connecticut side, like the captain has said, we can enforce that even if they go across the line, but if it happens in Rhode Island's waters right now, we do not have jurisdiction to do anything about that. That's just,
not being done.
well,
As
it's,
he even said it earlier, is if they go over their imaginary line, there's nothing they can do.
Right, so,
That's what they said earlier. and now you're
well,
saying
we're gonna
it's
talk
not.
about what we can do moving forward, because I hear the same stories over and over and over, and we are trying to come up with the best solution that we can within the limitations that we have by the law. And I have heard, I can tell you how many stories that I've heard, and I know that they're accurate and they're real. And I've been out there with Tracy on the boat, and I've seen it, people flying by and then slowing down when they see you. But I can tell you the other lake associations, they all have no wake zones in certain areas because there is no speed limit for a jet ski on the water. It's a no wake zone. So if you,
I disagree.
well, can I just finish? So
200
that's the
feet
other,
from shore.
excuse me.
There's a no wake
I
zone for
went-
jet skis.
But there's areas of Beach Pond that are very narrow
It's 200 feet from shore.
that, and the no wake zone, if you put it in place, it makes it easier for officers to enforce. But I know that's been rejected by you, or
Because
this
there's
group in the
nobody to
past.
enforce it,
So-
so it doesn't matter if the law is there.
So I can,
Well,
speak to
Well,
two
we're
things.
trying to get to that.
Yeah, we're
If
trying to
you
get
form a lake
towards that.
association,
Yeah.
there is funding that can be available from the state, which then the lake association takes responsibility and hires people to enforce the laws on the
So
lake.
do we pay a premium on taxes as our town to help pay for that?
Um,
It's up to the other residents when the budget's proposed. Yeah.
So I can speak to just, again, this is your decision. We're here to, we can do what we can, offer some solutions, right? So again, the solutions here, I'm sure are gonna have many different opinions, but we're out. Knowing we have limited resources, the goal is to make it as easy as possible to enforce what we can enforce, which is from that line this way, right? Like we said, if we see something happening, we're able to pursue in Rhode Island, but it has to happen in Connecticut, right? So two things that would make it easier for our officers, basically increase their effectiveness while we're on the lake is, right now, the lake is, you mentioned the 75-foot, someone here mentioned 75 foot from shore, or 200 feet from shore, right? Whatever, thank you, Captain. So basically, that area of the lake, they can zip down that long, narrow area of the lake. If you're looking at the boat launch to the right, I'm not sure, I don't know, east and west, right? I did have a chance to go check out the pond this summer, last summer. It was great. So if there was a no wake zone in that area, that would obviously slow down traffic and it would make enforcement much easier. Again, anything that we do, right, applies equally to people who live on the lake and who are visiting the lake. So when we approve the way that regulations works, we propose something to the town. We could just regulate it, but we like to let the town have a say. So basically, if you say we want that regulation, then we would review it. We've kind of told you we'd be supportive of a no wake zone there. So if you guys think that's a good idea, we'll approve it. It has to be equally, anything that we approve has to be equally applicable to anyone on the lake, whether you own a house or whether you don't own a house. It has to be equal for anyone out on the lake on a boat, right? That's one option. Again, it's up to you, right? We're here to propose an option. The second one, and just really quickly, is exactly what was just presented here, is to have a lake patrol officer or a lake association that could hire. If you want to have someone on the lake, which obviously a presence on the lake makes a huge difference. When you have any boat on the lake enforcing, things are quiet when we're not there, right? When we're not there, things are obviously more, when we don't have someone on the lake, things are wilder and more out of control than we do. So if you're able to put someone on the lake, even if it was weekends only or certain hours during the week, so you can reduce your costs, right? If you're able to hire someone, we do a training program with other lake associations. So basically, that patrol officer could join one of our trainings in another, we could support that. Here, they could drive over to Candlewood Lake and join our training at Candlewood Lake, and they can go back over here, and they wouldn't have a gun, but they could have, a boat, and they could be out there and they could enforce the tickets. You can also go the post-certified route with a gun. It's going to be more expensive to do that. So those are two options. Yeah.
Do they have further jurisdiction over both sides of the pond?
That would be that would be later on when we can work that.
You
It's
still need that with
needed
Rhode
to
Island,
do the whole Rhode
because you're going to
Island
two
thing.
different courthouses
Yeah.
and jurisdictions.
So
Sets of laws are different.
that would be hopefully in the future. But we want to find, nothing's going to be easy, nothing's going to happen right away, but there is a process to get there. And I think every step would be a benefit towards that process.
Can I make a point here? Heather brought it up. You're talking about lack of personnel and problems on both sides. Heather brought it up, which is correct. The United States Coast Guard, what their duty and job is to survey and keep safe and monitor the interstate waterways. That's their job. Whatever you're proposing now, it in my mind, it should be under the Coast Guard's jurisdiction, because that's what they're supposed to do. The Coast Guard has been here, and they should be pushed on, really pushed on hard because of this situation here. And I really implore everyone here to take that into stock and then go after those people to make it to Congress and so on to get the Coast Guard to do their job.
Sorry, I'm Peter Francis. I'm the director of the voting division with DEEP. I recognize a lot of you from was it last year we were here, year and a half, pre-COVID, I guess, over at the school. With respect to the Coast Guard, we have been working with them very closely. We continue to push them to try to get additional patrols up there. There is a slight hang-up because they don't have local state jurisdiction. They can't enforce the state laws, right? So they have the ability to cross the state lines and to pull people over, but in order to write those tickets, they still need to defer that to state police, whether it's Connecticut or Rhode Island. So it's sort of a quirky thing there, but even just getting them on the water is a big deterrent for folks out there. I just wanted to give everybody a little bit of background on what the voting division's been working on since I chatted with you all last. As you guys know, Mason mentioned it, we have 117 state boat launches in Connecticut, but as the first selectman and the senator mentioned, we have been ramping up our ability to get more staff out in the field. This past summer, we had 82 individual BEA boating education assistants at the launches at Beach Pond. We were there every weekend, and we covered all 3 holidays in the summer as well. Our BEAs did 670 AIS inspections at the launch, trying to make sure that the aquatic invasives stay out of the water body here. In addition to having the boating education assistants in the boat launch, they don't go out on the water. We did send one of our full-time staff out on the water. He was out 3 times. I think it was twice in June and once in July. Maybe all 3 were in June, I'm not sure, but that was in response to some of the early season calls that we received. And he made a total of 58 interactions with boaters on the water. It's really important. We have our deep boat is out there. It's it's got deep on the side. While he doesn't have any enforcement authority, really just being able to be out on the water does slow a lot of people down. He reported that he really didn't see a lot of crazy jet skiers, all the things that we've been hearing from you guys for the last couple of years. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I totally get that it does happen. I'm sorry. So let me just finish, please, sir. And it's really Beach Pond is the only boat launch in Connecticut that we have an alcohol ban at, and that's something that we're also trying to get a handle on some of the chaos both on the water and in the state forest next door, which I think is really important to know as well. One thing that we've been working on, and I'll share it with you, we have it in draft form tonight, is a brochure that we developed with the state of Rhode Island that we can hand out at the boat launches to the boaters that are coming in to the waterway. It really just explains a little bit about how to report violations. It has the laws, the 200 feet from shore. It has it explains the local ordinances. We hope that this is going to be something that, if nothing else, makes people aware of some of the laws that are going on out there. I think it's important that you guys don't tell other areas about this because we don't want to make these for all of the water bodies in Connecticut. This is obviously very special just for Beach Pond. So I think it's it's important that I'll share these in the back if you guys want to take a look afterwards. But in response to the complaints and the situation that's going on, we have spent an extraordinary amount of time, staff resources from the voting division on Beach Pond issues. I recognize that that when there's safety issues, if somebody is going to be zipping past somebody close to shore, close to another boat, close to a paddler, you really need to use the number, call NCON. They will follow up. I understand in your situation it was unfortunate how it turned out, but we gotta we're working with the voting division. We don't have enforcement authority. We work very closely with our NCON team. And you can always work through me as well to get to NCON. So, my team is always available. I have 3 staff in education outreach. We do spend a lot of time on weekends getting out and looking at the water bodies. Again, 117 boat launches. Some of them are a little crazier than others. Some of them are a little slower. We don't even get to it all in a summer. I think this year we got to 108 of the 117, but we did have 82 staff days of our boating seasonal staff at Beach Pond at the boat launch. So I'm just telling you that we're being responsive to what's going on with that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Scott Arsenault. I am your retired game warden, and I was the enforcement officer on Beach Pond. Many of you have called me at home. I was at many of you have called me at home with complaints. Look, guys, I'm going to make this an easy segue for everybody that's up front. The bottom line, I enforced out here I live here, so obviously I was local. I came by, put a lid on it. The short answer is absolutely, you've never had enough staff. You will never have enough staff. It's the DEP. It's unfortunate, but it's the way it is. The bottom line, and I mean this to sum everything up, the bottom line, get together, get some money. If you don't do it, I've been saying the same thing for years. If you don't have the funding, you're not going to get the enforcement. The reason is because you need presence on the water. You don't necessarily need a guy or a girl with a gun. You need a person that is there, that is watching this stuff, that knows what they're talking about, that can stop people and say, hey, knock this stuff off. If they're unregistered, if they're illegal, they become a really good reporter. So when the income officer comes up, you can say, hey, we had this red jet ski, this reg number, this individual, this is what they were wearing, this is what they were doing, this is the regulation or the infraction or the misdemeanor or whatever it is that they violated. And now we have some actionable intelligence. We have some things we can do. Nobody can be on your water from dawn to dusk that is, in uniform. It's just not humanly possible because, as they've said, how many accidents do you have this year, sir? 7 fatalities this year? And just boating alone?
That's boat, yeah. That's
Just
boat,
boating.
Connecticut
So-
River and other ponds.
Right, so you had 7 fatalities going on other places, and when you deal with fatality, you're dealing with, 6 or 7 officers pulled to that one location. That's normally on a weekend, normally on a nice day. The bottom line, again, you need money, you need organization, you need one voice as an organization, which is going to go to Mr. Yard's presentation. If you guys can do that, you can get what you're asking for, you can get what you want. And you really do need it. There are some significant problems. They can be addressed, but they can't be addressed the way we're doing it right now, which is kind of piecemeal, which was the phone calls. And by the time you get an officer coming across state, they're gone for 2 hours. You need somebody there that can handle the issue right then and there. And that's really what you're all looking for, right? So, and I know that because everybody's called me about it. So, and I'll leave it on to you.
I was just gonna say to that point, the problem I have with it is I don't wanna become an enforcement branch of DEP through an organization, the taxes that get paid for everyone that lives on that pond. We're looking to the legislature and the enforcement people in DEP to take care of the problem. I don't wanna sit down in meetings, have an association, come up with who's gonna get the money, who's gonna pay for this guy, whatever his hour's gonna be. That's like a part-time job.
State owns park. So my
So all the taxes we pay,
If this area is owned by the state, why should we as taxpayers have to pay for all, like you said, all this? We all have full-time jobs. This is a lot of work, what you're talking about, which I get it and we need it. But we're already paying a premium on our property tax, so we feel like.
Yeah.
why-
I think
why
when we
should
talk
have
to
pay for
Mr.
state park?
Gerard, he can tell you how much time, he'll tell, they started a pond association at Patchogue, so he will have all the details as to how that works, how much time is put in, who's on, I think he brought some of his team here too. So they can tell you what they put into to form this and what they put in to run it. They've already gotten grants. They got enough grants and they raised enough money to get a big weed machine. So they've been very successful, and they can tell you more about that. He's going to talk next. So you want to? Yep.
Thank you.
Can we wait until? Okay.
Right. And my name is Tom Giard, and president of the Patchogue Pond Weed Control Association. A different problem than what you folks have.
Maybe you have some invasive weeds as well as the speeders and the other problems, okay? And we have that too. But back in 2016, about a dozen of us, lake owners, got together and we had a quick meeting because we had problems. And that followed up by 2017, we were able to incorporate. We are a 501c3 nonprofit conservation group. There are about 300 property owners on Patchogue. We have over 200 of them as members in our association. Numbers mean strength. You know that, I know it, politicians know it. And what I'm hearing here tonight is that if you expect the state, DEP, anybody else to solve all your problems, it's not going to happen. As simple as that. Not going to happen. Okay, resources. Every time I call somebody from, and this isn't a stone, but I call, they retired. Well, who replaced them? We didn't replace anybody. Okay, that's the reality of what we're all facing, whether it's Patchogue or here on Beach Pond. Okay, so when you organize, now you have 50, 100, 150 people. There's strength. And the politicians know that. And I'm talking to the politicians. Senator Summers is here, and she's very receptive to everybody and anybody, not only groups, but she tries to do the best she can to help us out. But anyway, that's a little bit of a background. You would benefit greatly from an organization, an association. They're not hard to do. First thing we did, we turned around, like I say, going into early part of 2017. We formed a group. We hired an attorney, cost us a couple $100. We took and we became incorporated. Following that, we had our bylaws and the usual things that go into an association. It's worked out very well. How much work is involved? Well, we have an executive board of 5 individuals, 4 others, myself, that do the bulk of the work. So it's 5 people. And we do get help from the board of directors. Our board of directors are made up of 16 individuals. Of the 16, 5 of us also belong to the board of directors. The board of directors meet once a month. It's the 4th Wednesday in the evening, 7 o'clock in the Griswold Town Hall, downtown Jewett City. It's open to the public. If you'd like to come down and participate, please feel free to. But it's a board of directors meeting. The way we operate, any member of the 200 plus members can come down and they can talk to us. They can ask questions during the meeting. They can participate in discussions and so forth. It's a really good way of keeping people in touch with what you're trying to do. As we go along in a few minutes, I'll introduce our other members here and they'll talk specifically about what they do. And it's a great way to provide camaraderie for people who live in the community, because you do get, like you mentioned, people who like to go fishing, swimming, etc. They don't live on the lake, but they come in and they use the lake. Patchogue is a state-controlled body of water, and the boat launch is a state boat launch, same as you guys. So, we don't have the speeders necessarily and all of that, but we have invasive weeds. And it's really bad. It's really bad. And we've been working since 2017. This is our 5th year, and we're getting close to where we can start to. You have to contribute. You have to have something that you can bring to the table when you're talking to DP in the state and to our local senator. You have to bring something to the table, and that's what we're here to kind of put on the table for you folks. Let me introduce our Vice President, Everett Galindo. He's going to talk a little bit about. What he's going to talk about. Everett, you want to come up?
Sure.
That's good.
Hi, everybody. My name's Everett Galindo. Tom and I share a lot of the same responsibilities. He's a great moving force. He's retired, so he has time to do a lot more than I do. But we've really become pretty successful because of our goal. Okay, our goal is to save our pond. And saving our pond saves our own property value, right? So it was very simple to get people on board because that's a big part of what we all want to do is maintain our property value, enjoy our investment on the waterfront, this and that. So that's, one of the reasons people got on board. It wasn't a hard sell, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is because we all have the same end goal, As a lot of you made the point is we pay a premium for living on the waterfront, right? We pay extra taxes. But, as we've said, the funds that are gonna come from the state or the town, they're going so many different ways. But when you're organized, now there's 200 people that are paying a lot of taxes. When you go talk to your first selectman, they're gonna listen, okay? Because, if the property value goes down, that's less taxes they're gonna collect. So they have a vested interest in trying to make sure, the property values stay where they are, And one of the other things that has been helped is the activities we do. Like we said, we meet once a month. We've had a golf tournament. That was one of the things we've done every year, and it's been a big fundraiser. We make probably anywhere between $8,000 and $12,000 a year. And we've put together, like I said, a fair number. We're not sure what we're going to do yet. Whether it's weed harvesting, chemical treatment, grass eating carp. We've educated ourselves over this past 4 years as well. Go ahead.
And I'm being the devil's advocate here, but there's a big difference between weed control and putting somebody out on a boat who's going to deal with the savages that are hanging out in that Rhode Island boat launch. There's going to be threats of physical violence. There's going to be physical altercations. Whose boat are you going to use? Who's going to pay the insurance? Is he going to wear a uniform? What uniform does he wear? If he's post-certified, under what authority does he go into the regulation? I'm going to tell you the truth. I know my neighbor was out there, and he got surrounded on his boat by people that threatened with physical violence. So you're going to take somebody out, and there's a big difference between weed control and enforcement. Anyone in this room that's wore a badge and a gun knows the difference. So weed control is one thing. Put some guy out there in a boat to tell a bunch of kids that have been drinking all afternoon on a wave running to knock it off. Somebody's getting their teeth knocked out.
Okay.
Who's going to be liable for that?
I'll address you. You're right. But what you described is absolutely right.
I know it is.
It's an accident waiting to happen. It's a bombshell waiting to go off.
Right.
What we're standing here saying is that an association can take as a group and actually mediate that. You can, for example, up in Moodus Lake, Moodus Reservoir, okay? There are friends up there. We've been up there and talked to them quite often. They have the association and the town work together, and they put a patrol boat on the water. A patrol boat.
Who owns the boat? I mean, who's responsible for the boat? Who pays the insurance?
I can't answer the question, but what I'm trying to say is it wouldn't happen if they didn't have an association. And the same thing here. You need an association to work with the first selectman to say, okay, and it's not where you're going to have 50 people show up. You're going to have a group of, like we have, an executive board, 5 people. We go to meetings and we talk to the town officials, we talk to the state folks, and we try to come up with solutions. The solutions. The problem you outlined is, yeah, but if you have a verified, and a lot of times, from what I understand, they probably give retired security police individuals who are trained to operate in this environment. And I think somebody brought it out is if you see a patrol boat, and that's what the Moodus folks told us, just the fact that you have a boat out there and you have somebody out there, it works.
There's also insurance and liability.
Right. That's where you work with the town.
And these are ways that the association can work with the board of selectmen.
Well, we had to get answers. I know she wants to call a timeout, but we
No, I
had
don't
to
want
answer.
to call it time out.
The association would be able to work with the town. The thing is, what I'm worried about as the town, the town can go ahead and do all these things, but you know what's gonna happen? It can get cut from the budget. Another board of selectmen could come in 5 years and be like, oh, everything's fine, we don't need this anymore. This is where the association comes in. It's a constant. When the boards change, when people.
Can't do anything in Rhode Island.
Well, we might be able to fix that in the future, but we need to focus on what we can change right now. And these are things we can change now, or work for changing now.
You know what happened over in Rhode Island?
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
How many people on this road have a house or cottage on Beach Pond? So almost everybody. And I think everybody would attest to 95% of the problem is from Rhode Island launch and the boaters down there, jet skis.
I disagree.
But
I disagree with you, you're involved on that.
that's fine. But you're one guy, but I bet you the rest of them in here would agree to that.
Right, but we all know that Rhode Island's the problem, but there's no one at the table from Rhode Island right now to change that. And we're here to talk about what we can change on our side. We can stand here all day and talk back and forth about how it's Rhode Island's fault, but they're not here. We all heard it and we all know.
Connecticut did a great job this year. I've been there my whole entire life on Beach Pond. I never seen so many cops on the water as I did this year.
Yeah.
Not even close. 10 times, 1,000 times over. You were there. And you did a great job with the Connecticut boaters. Excellent job. Everything, it was never any better than this year. But Rhode Island, the past 3 years was horrible, and you guys can't do anything there. So that's why we're here. That's why everybody's here, not to hear all this other stuff.
Is there any chance that maybe Rhode Island's having the same issue and having a town hall meeting saying the same thing about Connecticut?
You know, Rhode Island, well, here's a good example. There was supposed to be a guy from Rhode Island here tonight. Where is he?
All right, can I just say, I would like to refocus this, okay? As we said, all we keep hearing is Rhode Island, Rhode Island, Rhode Island. And I understand it's very frustrating, but we do not have jurisdiction over Rhode Island.
That's the problem tonight,
Right,
Rhode
so that's
Island.
the problem, and we cannot fix that until we get a law passed that 5 other states will get on. That's just the
You
reality
can't
of
just
what
have
it
a
is.
thing with Connecticut,
So,
Rhode
if
Island.
I
That's
can-
unheard
We're
of.
gonna start with that and we're gonna try that in the
How
pattern
many
of
lakes
today.
are joined Rhode Island, Connecticut border?
So,
That's
How many?
That's
Other than
one.
Beach Pond?
fine, be
That's the
fine.
only
So
one.
that's pretty, seems pretty simple, like, to me.
It's not, because we're one small town, and as you can see, because no one's here from Rhode Island, they don't give a
Yeah,
crap.
they don't
So-
care, exactly. That's part of my
why
point.
we have
I
to
don't
start,
know
and
how
I don't wanna waste
much
their time, they're here to help us come up with solutions and to hear their side. We can stand here all day and blame Rhode Island, I would just like to
They
not
have
do
a
that
different
anymore.
problem than we have.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter, they're not here to talk about their problem, they're here to talk about their association and how to start one. They're not here because the problems are the same, they're here to tell you how they start an association and what they do and their different roles. And I would like to respect them for being here to help us. And listen, I'm not saying this is something we have to do, but I would like you to listen openly to the process they went through and think about everything we've talked about today if you want change. Because we can stand here, we could come here every year and have the same conversation and do nothing, or we can listen and see what we can do to move forward. So I would just like respect, please, for them, and we can have questions after, and we can't control Rhode Island right now. We just have to understand that and not bring it up again, please.
And if there's one
And-
more thing that I would just like to add is every little step that you take to try to find a solution to the issues that you're having will make a significant difference. And I don't want to get into the weeds of who's going to pay for this or that right at this point in time. But I can tell you there are other associations in this state where they work closely with the local municipality, where the municipality may give them a boat. They work on it together. It's a collaborative effort. And the reason why it's so important to have an association is for the continuity going forward. Because selectmen and senators come and go. And, you know, they have the same issue in Litchfield County on lakes that span between Connecticut and New York. And the senator's not doing anything. They just were like, I'm giving up. Because there's only so much that we can do within the restrictions that we have. So it gives you, it's not a perfect solution, but it moves you towards the goal point. And it does open you up for funding from the state. They can help fund patrol officers. They can help fund boats. When you have an association, the Shellfish Commission in Groton got a boat donated. When you have a nonprofit, businesses donate to the nonprofit. It's a tax write-off for a lot of people. So there are different ways to raise money. And this is something that we're trying to bring to you as a little cog in the wheel of a solution until we can get to the point, which is going to take time, if we can get there, to have 5 states get on board with this. So it's not perfect, but we do not control Rhode Island. We don't have say in DEM. We don't have say if they show up. So we can only fix the problems that we have control over. And so I think it's just really important. They're not here to talk about their weeds. They're here to talk about the process of what they did to set up this lake association.
All right, thank you. What I'd like to do is move on to Pat Peterson, who's our secretary, and that's Everett. And she will talk to you about how we communicate with our members. Pat? Mask off. I'm not going to take the mask off, though.
Hi, good evening. I recognize a few faces here. My name is Pat Peterson. I've been on Patchogue for over 25 years now. Love it there, always have. Solid weed issue. It's not your issue, but it's our issue. And a lot of times I brought it up to the town selectmen, whoever that was at that time, that we needed to do something. Finally, in 2017, 6 of us got together and we had our own meeting. In 2017, we formed the 501c3. As the secretary, I was able to take a mapping system that I have the ability to interact with. And I found all the homeowners that are direct waterfront homeowners, those people that would have, that's what I'm thinking of, the vested interest. So we started out with those people. And I took their names, I took their addresses, I put it all in an Excel spreadsheet. And that's what I work with right now. Anytime a house goes up for sale and it sells, I've got that name and I've got that address. And that person gets a letter from me along with a member application. And we send it out to them about a month after they've closed. So that's how we communicate. Any new owner gets a letter from us with an application. And then anybody who's already joined, I have all of their information, their phone number, their address, their email address, and we communicate that way. And every month I take the meeting minutes, I put them in an email form, and it goes to everybody. And so everybody knows what's going on. And that's really what we need to do here for your association.
All right, and we got.
He's got a question.
Hang on. And at the same time, anytime that something comes down the road that I'm privy to, because I communicate with the state officials quite a bit, and we can get it out within 5 minutes to all our members, all 200 people who are on the mailing list, know exactly what's going on. You might know or not know, but they're rebuilding the dam on Patchogue. I can't tell you how many emails, phone calls I get every week. What's the status? Why is the water going up? Why is the water going down? And we're able to communicate with everybody, which really, really helps keep everybody calm. And they don't get overly emotional about it because they know what's going on. You were going to say something?
There was a question back there.
Yes.
Yeah, the 501(c), the charitable, is it 501(c), the charitable organization?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where do you get the funding to pay for the attorneys, the filings, the annual filings that have to be done, the accountants? Where does that money come from? Does that come through a grant or is that through donations?
We're going to have the treasurer stand up and talk.
So it is
She's
coming
going to
out.
tell you
Because I
everything
know
that
they
we
don't do
do.
it for free.
No, it's not for free.
No, nothing's for free.
Well, trying to get money out of people is another thing, you know.
That's another thing too, yes. And we have people that are paying, the members that are paying $50 a year. That's it.
Membership.
That's a couple of 6-packs, you know.
But then there's always the enforcement of you got half the neighbors on care and they pay, the other half don't, but everyone gets equal.
Everybody
Absolutely
gets
right.
it equally,
They all
that's
benefit.
right. I mean, you can't force them to join, you can't force them to pay,
But if you're not a member, you don't get the emails, you don't get the information, you're in left field, you're in the dark. So if Barbara Hatch will come up, she's our treasurer, she's going to explain about our finances.
Hi, I'm Barbara Hatch. I've been with the group since the beginning. We have many fundraisers that we do throughout the year. Our biggest one is the golf tournament, as Everett alluded to. That one averages us about $12,000 a year. We also have sponsors at the golf tournament, and people buy tee signs, and of course the golfers pay, as well as raffles. We also have a comedy night. We haven't had it for 2 years because of COVID, but we do have one planned for May, and that usually brings in about $2,500. We have a yard sale every year at the town garage, and that also brings us about $2,000 a year. One of our biggest things each year, besides the golf tournament though, is the membership. That's $50 per family. And over the past 4 to 5 years, we have raised over $100,000. And that's where we are able to purchase whatever it is that we are going to end up doing for the pond, whether it's carp or, and I know that's not important, but just lost my entire train of thought. We have over $100,000, and that's how we can pay our lawyers. That's how we can pay our accountants, and a lot of our stuff also does get donated. So it's well worth it. We work hard, but and my job as treasurer is to attend those once a month meetings and deposit money, and it's really not that bad. I am retired, but I can do what I need to do in a couple of hours a month. So just
Thanks, Barb.
Yep.
The finances to deal with the question the gentleman had is, in the very beginning, we didn't have any money. Obviously, you start with zero. And there was a big debate whether or not the membership should be $25 a month or $50 a month. Well, it's $25 a month.
A year.
A year, I'm sorry. I'm wishing. But we ended up with $50 for the year, and it has worked very well, very well. And you'd be surprised how the money goes up. And we did apply for a couple of grants early on that we picked up. There was one grant for $1,000, and we picked up another for $5,000. They're out there. But once you're established, people look at you, organizations that have grant money, differently. If you apply as an individual, which most times you can't anyway, but if you're an association, you can go after grant money, not necessarily with the state all the time, but you can go after private foundations. You can go after money. As long as you have a specific, what are you going to do with the money? That's what they like to know. Also, I'd like to bring up Mark Palin, who is our Director of Communications. How do we communicate with everybody besides email? Come on up.
I'm Mark Fallon. I actually work with my wife. Okay, my wife actually is the one that put together our webpage, and we wanted to try to be part of the 21st century here. So, not that we're webpage gurus. We ended up learning on our own how to do that. But I've got a business card here with our website. So if you guys want to come see me, our website right now is patchoguepond.org. Okay, and then we actually have an email address too. So if you want to get a hold of us, we monitor that email address. Again, come see me. We created a web page. On the web page, we put the agenda minutes. So if you can't attend the meeting, the minutes are there. Any kind of upcoming events, fundraisers, those are on the page. We actually learned how to be able to pay the funds, your monthly, your annual dues from the web page there. Sign up for the golf tournament. It's come in very, very handy. You can see it when we go to our monthly meetings. I've been on the lake or the pond for 15 years now, and in the beginning there, it wasn't too much more than just the board of directors in attendance to the meetings. Now, the town hall, they're actually, just like tonight, they're pulling chairs out to attend the meeting, and it becomes pretty vociferous at times. We're going through expenditures or upcoming things that we're talking about buying. We do have the monthly meetings. There is power in numbers. Instead of me individually applying for a permit to try to control weeds around my property, you have 200 other members on that pond that have also similar problems. Not only that, you have common water that we go through. We did drone flyovers, and it's pretty eye-awakening of all the different trails out there from crops cutting up the weeds because it's in the middle of the pond. And you're seeing it with the fishermen too. All the trolling motors are getting all caught up in the weeds and stuff. So, we're seriously having a problem as far as weed control goes. What are we going to do with the web page? Well, right now, the kind of things we put on there, I mentioned minutes. We're putting in there surveys. Every year we've been doing a survey, and each year it's getting worse and worse. We had drone flyovers, so we're putting the pictures in there. Everett mentioned that we're actually looking into buying a weed harvester. The weed harvester is almost $100,000 by the time we get all of our equipment in place. Do we have that all figured out as to how we're gonna use the weed harvester? No. We have the issue of, well, what about the people that aren't paying? Okay, well, we're gonna work that out, okay, because they're not gonna necessarily get the benefit of all the people that are paying into the weed harvester. We do boat parades, we use, the webpage has that. Right now, we're looking to try to do a kind of an innovative thing that they do out in the West Coast to be able to control weeds by laying down mats. Instead of me buying my own mat and paying whatever the fee is, if we can get enough people to buy it, we can actually get a serious discount too. We're actually looking into trying to apply for a permit for the entire body, not just property off Pound's place, but the entire body, so that if we can get chemicals, if we can use carp, we've got that permit in place for everybody's benefit. So again, there is power in numbers by having an association. The webpage, again, please see me if you're interested. It is always work in process, okay? But it is an effective way to be able to log in and be able to see what the latest and greatest information is. We try to put the pond drawdown information in there. I'm going to try to put some of the dam information in there because people are seeing a lot of work on the dam. So that's it. Questions?
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll wrap up by saying, is it work? Yes, it's work. Is it unbelievable work? No. Is it satisfying? Yes. If you have a certain skills, I mean, I'm looking here, we've got maybe 50 people, 40 people. In your crowd, you have individuals who have certain skills. It may be the skill to be able to stand up here and talk. They may be a computer person who likes to work on that computer. You take those skills, the 5 of us have all our separate skills, and you work together. You work together to form the association. And I can tell you that in the final analysis, it's extremely satisfying to be able to say that we owners on Patchogue, or you folks owners on Beach Pond, have an association that everybody, or most everybody, is contributing. You're working towards the same goal. Right now, as a group of individuals, that's if you stay that way, it's individual complaints and individual problems. Try to organize yourself, and you'll find that a lot of doors will open to you, not only physically but financially. At this point, we'll take questions for any of the members, executive board, anyone here.
I think I'd like to have Rick come up and talk about grants, because I think that's important for everybody to learn about the ability of grant opportunities, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Senator. I'm not sure I can build on this. So I'm feeling a little like a heel here. But one of the things creating a lake association does is just exactly what you talked about. It makes you an entity that can apply for grants. One example of that is the Aquatic Invasive Species Stamp Grant Program. People like Senator Summers, leaders in conservation, passed Public Act 19-190 that generated just last year some $360,000 to put toward managing invasive aquatic species on lakes, rivers, ponds, etc. That's an example of the way in which a lake association can draw on funds to address a problem. Now, there isn't a grant program today that I'm aware of that deals with law enforcement issues. That doesn't mean there won't be one in the future. That building an association now can't prepare you for so that you could take advantage of it. That's, we did issue 21 grants last year, like I said, for $360,000. And to the extent you do have an aquatic invasive species problem now, we'll be announcing the next grant round probably either the end of this week or next week. So these guys are doing great work, something you might want to model after.
Thank you. And I'll just add one more comment, is that none of the executive board members or board of directors receives a dime. They are strictly volunteers. There's no stipends. In fact, we may buy stamps out of our own pocket, and that's the way it is. Our envelopes or anything else. Any questions? Anything I didn't touch on, or you want me to elaborate?
Just clarification, your association is just homeowners around the pond, or is there also friends of?
It's open to anyone.
It is
Yeah,
open.
yeah, very good question. Yeah, we do advertise. We put it out there. to the community and saying, hey, if you'd like to, because there are so many people that use the water. They come in with their boats, their kayaks, fishing and so forth, you know, they might want to pitch in as well. So we do have individuals who don't live on the water per se. For example, my neighbor across the street isn't on the water, they're a member. You know, that type of thing. It's a good question. Yes, sir.
You guys started the operation in 2017, give or take. What's your annual operating budget at this point?
Okay, yeah, we started in 2017. We had to pay, I think, I'm guessing, remember, $1,400 for the attorney, bylaws, and stuff like that. But once you pay that upfront money, you're home free, so to speak. But to answer your question, as far as, except for stamps and envelopes and some mailings like that, there's really no big budget items.
So then, what's your budget overall for your weed machine and all that stuff?
Okay, the weed machine, right now, we have a quote delivered of $95,000. And that is something that we're probably going to do. We've already voted, the association, the board of directors, all 16 members, board of directors, and that's how we operate. Everything goes to the board of directors. It isn't the executive board that makes expenditure decisions. It's the group that sits down in front of the membership. I think I mentioned that any of the members, when we have our monthly meetings, board of directors, anybody who's a member can come in and ask questions, can talk. The only thing they can't do is vote when it's time to vote, because they're not on the board of directors. And how we do the board of directors, it's, it's a 3-year term. So once you're on board, you're 3 years. The executive board is 3 years. We've been very successful at that time frame. Because the point was being, you try to keep people in place that getting the job done, instead of a revolving door type thing. You had another question, yes, sir?
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Perhaps it's a part of a solution that we want to think about. So I appreciate what you've done. But I do have a question for you, because the questions that came up before are really important. When you edge over from what you do to what we're thinking about, which is an enforcement action, you have to start thinking about insurance and liabilities. Does your board of directors carry insurance for the board?
Yes.
Okay. So now I have a question over here to the legal side and to the officers. Is there any way to think about absorbing liability if there's a deputy type of an organization that can be put together where they can be subsumed under your liabilities or your indemnification for people? Even if we don't have the people with the gun, some of the folks that we encounter, and he's right, there's some violent people that show up. Not all of them, but there's some violent people. One guy with a knife showed up very visibly. You can't put somebody on the lake in an enforcement sort of an opportunity. Facing those type of people is a very difficult situation, and you have to start thinking about liability, insurances, indemnifications, etc. And what coverage do we have so that person all of a sudden isn't on the 6 o'clock news for some altercation where it's claimed to be police brutality or whatever.
I can answer part of that, of what we've seen in other lake associations. First of all, there's a varying degree of enforcement on lake associations. Some people have more of a security person. They're not armed. They don't, carry a weapon, but they do have an ability to write a ticket. And in those cases where they would come in contact with somebody who's violent, the first thing they would do is call the police or the state police for backup. But they would not engage in that. Other lake associations will have a retired, I can't think what it's called, there's a term, a retired constable who's a cop, retired cop who's constable. I think the Valentine used to have constables at one point in time who has the power, but guess what? Cops don't have indemnification anymore. That went away with the police accountability bill, so that's out the door. But some of the other lake associations work with the towns to get on their insurance. I know we do that in Groton. They are covered under the town rider for insurance in those cases. So those are all things that can be worked out. And then, the lake association would work the way I would envision it. If you decide that you want to form one, you can even, join forces when you're looking for something with the Patchogue Pond Association. So you have 2 associations requesting the same thing, or one, writing a letter on your behalf saying, we want X amount of funding for X, Y, and Z. But those details of how it actually, what you want, what it would look like when they were hired would have to be discussed further with the town, as you decide what it is that you specifically want on your lake.
Not necessarily proposing this, but the state police have something called a resident state trooper program.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something the DEP can think about, but I don't even know what the funding would have to be and where that would come from.
That's not an option that we would have because with the resident state trooper program, the town actually pays for that officer and all the fringe that goes along with that. And we just don't have, we have to hire another officer. By the time we get an officer on the road, it's gonna be 1 year. We're looking to hire 4 right now, possibly 5, and we won't see them on the road as a full-fledged officer probably till November. And that's if they get hired in January.
One last question, sorry. When you referred to the proposal was in here for a no-wake zone, it talked about, let's see it on there, hang on. This is where you talked about the definition of a motorboat includes, and then you had a state statute in this particular proposal. Yeah, section 15-127. I'm not familiar with the one. Does that include PWCs? Does that include just outboard? But what does that include? I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, the definition of a vessel that includes any powered motorboat.
Any powered motorboat. Yep. Okay, it could be a PWC or anything.
It could be a canoe with an outboard.
Gotcha. Yep, thank you.
We have Squan's Pond, who the boat launch doesn't allow anything over a 25 horsepower engine. Cannot launch. That's something that could possibly be done.
There's too many other people that go on the pond.
It's even complicated because that boat launch gets federal dollars, so we're not allowed to do certain things because of the federal dollars. The boat launch itself is a state boat launch, but it gets federal dollars, so therefore we can't close it at certain times because of the federal dollars. It's not easy.
It's not funded 100% by Connecticut.
Do you have a question?
If we did an association, who's going to be writing the grants? Is it the town that's going to help participate in that? Because I know the towns hire grant writers.
Yeah, we don't hire grant writers. We actually have a community and economic development planner right now for a short term, which would be for assistance to help with that.
That we relied upon the association itself.
Well, if you form within 2 years, because this person's only hired on a 2-year contract, with reference to see how well they do, we might do a longer term. But we can figure this. These are all things we can figure out because all of this has to do with the town budget too. Because these are things we don't have in place right now, or we might not have by the time, depending on how fast the association forms. So if the town does put money towards anything, this would all be developed in the town budget, and because it's obviously not there right now, and it would be brought up at the town meeting too. So these are things that we can talk about to move forward, and the money could possibly be there, but again, it would be in the budget and be voted on as a town. So
the other thing is if we know that there's a lake association or you have a pond association. We know because we passed a law that puts a certain amount of money into a fund for invasive species. So if this association didn't know that, that's, Representative Lemieux and my responsibility to say, hey, by the way, that there are these grant opportunities that you can take advantage of, and here's the application. And then when you put it in, this just happened actually from, where's Sharon? Friends of Patchogue Forest applied for a grant, and they let me know. They gave me a copy of their grant, and then I go to DEP and I advocate, like, this is a great organization. They do so much. I can't fill out the application for you. I wish I could, but it has to come from your organization. But then you let me know that you're applying. I write letters in support. Brian writes letters in support, and we both advocate for you to get that funding. So we all have to work together to do it. I can tell you from my past mayor experience, there is nothing more valuable than a grant writer who can bring in 4 to 5 times their salary. The first year is tough because they're just getting going, but we had a grant writer in the past that could bring in 6 times their salary in funds. And grant writers kind of know where all the grants are. So it may seem like an expense that the town doesn't want to to spend money on, but if you find a good person, they can bring more money into the town than they cost the town. So that's just something to think about.
Just to dovetail on that, our association, we've written a couple grants, we've done it ourselves. It's not all that hard, but, we're fortunate that we've had a couple people in the association that enjoy doing that kind of stuff. So you never know who's sitting in the crowd with you that can step up and help you out to do some of this stuff.
And just like
my wife is actually superintendent of Montville, and she does a lot of educational grants. She was the one that actually got involved and the one that we ended up winning. So chances are real good. There's somebody that lives on Peach Pond that's done grants before.
And then I'll point out that in Griswold, that I approached the town government for a selectment, and I said, hey, it's opening up the grant for the next cycle. The town can apply for a grant, that same maximum is $50,000 out of that invasive weed fund. And so they agreed, and the town planner in Griswold was going to apply on behalf of the Lake Association for $50,000, and we're going to apply as part of the association for $50,000. So we can get both parties working on it. So
You can get two.
right, you can get up to $50,000 in two.
So that goes back to what somebody was saying earlier. The election in Griswold, we have a new first selectman now. So we had started with the past one. Now there's a new one, but we're a bunch of members, that's an association. We carry the weight back in with the new person in charge.
Exactly. It's more consistency if you have a consistent body to carry through over different terms of elected officials.
Right, and I'll finish up with just saying, yes, sir, before I finish up.
Actually, just before Tom, sorry to interrupt, but for everybody here to close the loop for you, they're talking about aquatic invasive species, which this gentleman is doing the funding for. If you take Amos Lake, they did what's called a pond management plan. Now, a pond management plan obviously concentrates on aquatic invasive species. However, point and non-point pollution, sources of nitrogen. A management plan goes all the way into introducing what do boats cause? They cause wakes, they cause erosion, right? So what are we talking about? We're talking about boats, right? So we're talking initially you get a funding for that AIS, which is incredibly important. That pond management plan that you get doesn't necessarily stop at just aquatic invasive species because boats introduce those AIS to your waterway, correct? So now we're talking about stakeholders. You bring that management plan to the state of Rhode Island and say, you're a stakeholder in this pond, you're creating a attractive nuisance by bringing these boats in and doing nothing to stop the AIS from coming in. Our management plan says this. What are you going to do about it? Now, instead of a lot of disparate voices, you have a simple plan and the state funded 100% of it. So, like I said, I just want to close the loop for you. Don't think that AIS, aquatic invasive species, that is the hot topic right now. That is the hot button issue. You can get money there. And if you get a good plan together, provided you're all willing to get together, again, you can meet your needs and your expectations, what you want. Trust me, this is what you want.
And the other thing I haven't gotten answers yet from Rhode Island, but the other thing that there's an opportunity for too is with the association, are you open up to grants from Rhode Island now too? Because Rhode Island is part of the pond. So this opens up a whole nother funding that is out there too. So it's.
All right, I'll just wrap up, but if after tonight, anybody wants to ask me questions, Tracy's got my phone number and contact information. Give me a call. I'm more than happy to talk with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's almost like that sometimes in what we do, but more than happy to help, give our guidance or our experience. And I think a good question came up, a point just a minute ago, that a lake association not only can deal with the speeding and the danger, but too, at some point in time, you may be faced with the invasive species problem or some other problem that's unseen to us at this point in time. And you would be positioned to take positive action rather than be a loose knit where we are right now, individual taxpayers that don't like the situation. The situation's changed. So it's a strong effort. If you put it together, a little bit of work, not outrageous, and you can make this done. And with our group here, more than happy to help you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to cut to the chase here, just out of curiosity, how many people in this room, show of hands, are willing to belong to a beach pond association seriously? Then how do we begin? That's what I want to know. How do you begin? You just have everybody sign and put their.
Okay, first of all, those that are interested, you have a meeting. You can have it right here on the town hall. Right, have a meeting, and you simply sit down and say, who would like to be president? Who would like to be vice president? You know, and it's very, very democratic. It's very democratic. If you don't get somebody, I'll be very frank with you. When we had our first meeting, we had about a dozen people, and they looked around the table, and somebody said, pointed their finger at me, and they said, well, why don't you be president? I said, I guess I can do that, and that's how we started. So it's an effort that, you know, a little bit of humor involved, yes, and everybody works together. It's not outrageous. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a quick comment about that. So a lot of you know that my husband and I have been doing the water quality testing on Beach Pond for almost 15 years, in which time we've been kind of politely begging for help for a long time. So I just want to know, we can't take on more responsibilities because we've already been doing this for 15 years and we do it every weekend, all season long. So while I'm willing to be part of an organization, we can't take on the leadership role. So I want to know just honestly among this group of people, are there 5 people in here who would step up and do the leadership role?
Not at all. There's your 5. There's your 5.
You're president.
If you haven't a sense of where you are, you're on the road right now. This meeting tonight has got an agreement, so to speak. You have a number of people who are willing to take on a little bit of the task, and we're at your Pond Weed Control Association, PPWCA, we're here to help you. I'm more than happy, any one of us to meet, sit down with your group, and let's see if we can get it going.
And I can tell you that if you form this group, if this is what you decide you want to do, and you have, it looks like, you know, all these leaders, maybe the chair, once you get organized, I give you my word, I will help you fundraise. I will help you put something together to raise funds for your organization. We just had an event last week where we were race car driving, and whoever won, the donations go to a nonprofit. There's all these really kind of easy ways to raise money. We can talk to businesses that, you know, are environmental businesses that want to do good, you know, and they are willing and able to open up their, you know, checkbooks to an organization, especially when they know that it is, you know, helping preserve something beautiful here in the city of Connecticut. And it may not be huge money at first, but it builds on itself. And I would be happy to help you do that. I'm not allowed to touch money, but I can help you with an event, and it can go to your organization. So. The best thing, you know, I'm sure he has the information, but if anybody in this group or on your pond is an attorney, get them to join your group and they can do it pro bono for you. That's what a lot of the places do, because it's really easy for an attorney to do that. I'm sure there's probably someone in Voluntown that's in the area and interested that may be willing to do that.
You want an attorney, you want insurance. Find those 2 guys.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch on a point not related to the association. It was about enforcement, and I know you might remember my dog falling off the pontoon boat. I think it was last year, right? When the enforcement is out there, Rhode Island. I mean, I'll say one thing about Rhode Island. I'm from Rhode Island originally. The only thing I'm going to say about Rhode Island, I know firsthand the supervisor at the Hope Valley State Police Barracks got a call from the governor's office. It's an election year. Extremely heavy minority population over at that boat launch. Back off. Now, the new guy in office, he wants to get reelected, so they had a big, heavy presence, the phone rang, stay away. She wanted to go work under the Biden administration in DC. That's all I'll say about that, so Rhode Island's a dead issue over there. But as far as the enforcement, I think somebody was gonna touch on it earlier. We don't wanna see, me personally, I don't wanna see out there at 8 o'clock in the morning checking all the fishermen. I don't wanna, you know, in the pontoon, we're out there with the dog, the kids, we're fishing. I get it, it's part of it, you gotta show a reason why you're there, justification. But it's at night, like late afternoon, when the fires are burning all night and the music is so loud, you gotta shut your windows. That's what we need, not during the day, at night.
And that's what you need to do as an association, because Gardner Lake wants everyone out there, because the water skiers are out there wanting to water ski and the bass boats are out there ripping through. So you guys have your own needs and own.
What I'm saying, in the meantime, though, maybe somebody could make the enforcement, make it in the afternoon, because I keep saying savages, and that's what I'm calling them. They're over there drinking. They're not up till 10, 11 o'clock the next morning.
But that's
So
what
they
you
don't
need
come
to
out
do.
till
You
the
need to let
afternoon.
us know your hot times, that we can be there to enforce those issues at that time. And the association will be able to communicate, because we'll have someone that can possibly not be at every meeting, but be at a lot of your meetings, and be part of your association.
But in the meantime, I just wanted to make the point, if there's anyone else here that agrees, but it's different times than early morning. Early morning, it's the fishermen, it's usually out on the net, you know, like right at sunset, it's usually the pond people are out taking their sunset cruises. But there's that time between that 8 o'clock and that 2 o'clock. All hell's breaking loose.
Lake Basic is between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock.
I'll just say this.
You need to let us
I
know
do a
your hot
notification. Every time there's something bad that happens across the state or anytime response, I get a notification on my phone. So I know when those notifications come. They come exactly when you say they come. Right? Friday, Saturday night. Every single time. So I will say, well, that's, you know, hot time for you. It's a hot time everywhere across the state.
Yeah.
So that's just the
I'm
reality.
saying if we're gonna get people there, let's, you know, I don't know what DEP hours are, the enforcement, I don't know if it's a Monday through Friday days thing, I don't know what it is, if it's 24-hour shifts or how it works, but we need to get it later on at night, because those bonfires were burning, was it last year or the year before? You could see a dozen out the window in the woods, and the music on that little island, party island over there, it was so loud. I mean, I don't imagine what it was like for people living near the rocks. I don't know.
That's my property. My family's property.
The bonfires on my.
Yes, I just wanted to say, before anybody else leaves the room, could we possibly just set a date? And Jody, can we use the firehouse?
Yes, you may.
Could we possibly set a date to reconvene to form an association? With, set a date with these people that are here, and then they can pass the word along to.
You can do whatever you would like. If you
Well-
would like to set a date before the new year, set the date.
Well, yeah, let's have suggestions, anybody?
I think this gentleman had a question too.
Yeah, quick question, just to clarify the funding. So a committee or a commission will only entitle us to state funding for basic species. We would definitely need a 501 to do anything for law enforcement. Because the way I read it, there was
There
money
is
available.
not, right now, there's not currently a grant for exactly what you want. That doesn't mean there won't be grant availability or funding for that in the future, but currently right now, just like 3 years ago, there was no money for invasive species. Once there is a need, it's legislators that go and they try to pass a law saying that there will be funding available. But when you are considered a nonprofit, you can take money from.
That's pretty much.
Yeah, and also there might not be a grant out there specifically for law enforcement, but there might be some out there for, when you apply for grants, you have to think creatively how you apply for them. So like for management, like water management or something, pond management, like.
Part of managing the water is enforcement.
There's other
Safety
creative
management.
ways to apply
Safety
for grants.
management.
Yeah, safety management. There might not be a specific grant out there for law enforcement, but there's a grant out there somewhere that probably covers what we're looking for.
You can also take money from private organizations and charitable trusts that are not state. There's the Audubon Society, there is, Groton Open Space Association gives a lot of money out to different areas that are trying to preserve the environment. So it's not just state funding, it opens you up to all kinds of funding and applications. So
if we want to pick a date, or it's getting late too, so we're not here much longer.
Thank you everyone who showed up and took the heat and the questions and, you know.
Maybe the 5 of you that raised your hand, or the 7 should meet and decide
Yeah,
what date you want.
how about we just convene in the front of the room here at the end? Those that are interested in setting a date and then coming back, we'll just meet here. If that's good with everyone?
And if anyone has any, wants to talk to anyone. I'll be
Can we just pick a date?
If we just pick a date and tell everybody right now, whoever wants to show up will show up and.
Want to go just the 1st of January? Just get through Christmas?
Yeah, after Christmas.
January 5th,
January 5th?
Wednesday, January 5th.
How about now, Wednesday? And I want yoga in this room on Wednesday night.
Oh, yeah, we had to cancel yoga for tonight.
Anyway, we're gonna start the yoga.
After we already know them.
And if you all would join me, I'd like to thank the Deputy Commissioner for coming out and our
I wouldn't be surprised if they're not having the same meeting over in Rhode Island. Just.
No one lives on the island for Rhode Island.
January 6th? January 6th, at what time? 6 p.m.?
Thank you.